Welcome to Modular Games. This is the channel where we talk about designing your own game and using the rules and mechanics of your game to create the certain look and feel and environment and general mood that you want to have in whatever game you're playing. Usually role-playing games, though sometimes I do talk about things that are board games or not role-playing games as well. In particular today, I want to talk about right and wrong in terms of the rules, because I find talking to many people online, they think that it is right or wrong to have a specific type of rules. I recently had a discussion with someone about advantage on die rolls and whether it is better to have a system where advantage means you roll 2d20 and take the better result, or whether it is better to have a system where you always roll 1d20, but if you have advantage, you'll add a d8 and get to add a higher result because that d8 is not replacing the d20 but adding to it. And these two systems are very different, but they both work and they're both functional, and there's nothing really wrong with either of them. The difference is what result were you looking for? The question of whether you're using the right mechanic is not a question of whether a certain mechanic is the best mechanic you can have. It's a question of what result you were looking for. Because if you want advantage on a roll to give you very, very consistent results where you're always going to be rolling higher than normal, then rolling 2d20 is good for that, because if you're rolling 2d20 and taking the better result, it reduces the chance of you having a result less than 10 by a wide margin. But rolling 2d20 and taking the better result will never increase the upper bound on the die roll you can have. You'll never roll higher than 20. I mean, you might have a numeric bonus that you add to your d20 to put it above that, but you can't actually roll higher than 20. Meanwhile, with the other option, rolling d8, you can roll higher than 20. Because you're rolling a d20 plus a d8, you could roll 28. You can't do that with 2d20, take the higher. And so having an additional die that's added on is very, very good if you want to increase the maximum result that you can achieve. It's not going to give you too much consistency, though. It's very possible for you to roll a 1 and a 1. Well, that's possible on the 2d20 as well, but it's not as likely because there are 20 options on the 20-sided die and only 8 options on the 8-sided die. It's more likely that an 8-sided die will roll a 1. But is that a problem? No, it's not. If someone comes over and helps you, are they really giving you their maximum, are they really adding on their full potential onto your full potential? Well, no, but if someone gives you a leg up while you're climbing, then your ability to get up that wall might have increased beyond your original potential ever was. If you have to get up 5 feet in the air before there are any handholds, there's no way you're climbing that wall without help. Or maybe a step ladder, I suppose. Because oftentimes using a tool or implement can also give you a numeric bonus on the roll. And so, which one of these is better? Is it better to add a variable numeric die to increase your maximum result? Or is it better to roll multiple dice and just take the best result you roll? I already answered that question in case you didn't notice, and the answer is neither of these is the correct answer. It is not a solved solution. It's based on the type of game you want to have. If you're building a game where cooperation with your fellow players is absolutely 100% mandatory, then maybe you set a difficulty class that's so high you can't get to it with a d20. You have to have 2 or 3 people helping you with that plus 1d8 setup. Well, if you're not building a game where cooperation is 100% required, but you want to have many different options for how to give advantage, and you want to have advantage not be something that amps up your character, but allows them to use their best abilities consistently, then maybe rolling two dice and taking the better one is the way to go on that. It really depends on the type of game you're trying to create. And maybe you use both rules. Maybe you can gain advantage from some things, and that'll give you your 2 dice, choose the higher result, and gaining a benefit from another means will give you the extra die that adds a bonus. Now, good game design would indicate that you don't use the same name for both mechanics. So maybe one is advantage and one is help. That's a good system. It really is. But much of the time, you're only going to need one of the two. And that's not a problem. This same type of logic can be applied to other aspects of the game. It's not just rolling for advantage or whatever else. Well, what about rules for maintaining control over your character? What about insanity? Do you have rules for insanity? Is there a circumstance where the players are not going to have a say in what their character does? Well, some games have those mechanics built in, and it is in the baseline expectations for those games that this is part of what happens. But those games tend to be very much a horror survival style of thing. And if you're not playing a game with that type of mood, maybe you don't have any mechanics for that at all. Maybe mind control effects allow you to roll a die to save. Or maybe they just work automatically. Or maybe you have to use preventative measures to make sure that they don't work. Or maybe you don't even need to have an outside effect afflict you with this. You know that there are 3 items on your character sheet. If any of those 3 circumstances get fulfilled, you're going to have to make a die roll to see whether you maintain control over your character. Well, we just listed out a couple of different rules options. Well, you can have an outside effect that allows a save. You can have an outside effect that does not allow a save. You have an inside effect that does allow a save. Do you have inside effects that don't allow saves? Generally, we don't do that. Why don't we do that? Why don't we do that? Mostly it's because it feels bad. If you are watching this countdown on your character sheet that says, when this happens, you're going to lose control of your character and there's no save. Oh, right, Call of Cthulhu does that. Yeah, that rule does exist. And it serves a very clear purpose. And so you can see through this that you create a different mood and atmosphere in your game based on which rules you decide to use. You can motivate your players to behave in a certain way by structuring the mechanics of your game to reward that type of behavior. And you might think that this is a type of coercion. It's really not. What it is encouraging players to cooperate. If you're playing a cooperative board game, you don't want the players competing with each other. And so most cooperative board games don't have a mechanic that allows players to compete with each other. Anything they do is either going to independently benefit themselves or is going to benefit one of their allies in a cooperative game. Meanwhile, if you want to have a competitive game, the option to punch your ally in the face is something that might be more appropriate. So, how do we implement this? Well, honestly, just by watching this video, you've already implemented it. Thinking about the outcome that you desire is the first step in crafting a set of rules that reinforces those outcomes. If you want to have a board game where the players are motivated to build up as many settlements and cities and armies as possible, how do you motivate them to do that? Well, it's very simple. You make the win condition of the game based on having a lot of territories, having a lot of settlements, or having a lot of armies. If the win condition of the game is that you have to wipe out your opponent, maybe you have the ability to do that without building more than 2 settlements. You have not fulfilled the design conditions that you were looking to fulfill. Okay, so what if the win condition is that you need to control just this one specific map tile? Well, no, that doesn't actually motivate people to build up a large number of cities and settlements. You're not fulfilling the goal of what you wanted your game to be. You created a very different game by changing the win conditions. So how do you win at a role-playing game? Yeah.